This is Big Tasty Sports. It's week 13, and it's time for some best bets. To be honest, the last few weeks, these bets have not been the best. If you are on Twitter and following along, there's a lot of people who have struggled recently, and this show has definitely been no different. Last week had a couple guys, Phil and D went 0-3, so struggle for them. Kevin and myself went 1-2, so not a whole lot better. And Yanni was the one in the positive at 2-1. You'll hear on this stream, I tried to give him 3-0, which was not on purpose. And he corrected me. That's the kind of integrity we've got around here, even correcting from winners to losers when that is the case. So right now, D is the only one who is in the positive for the season. A couple of us a unit or two down. There's a couple who are a little beyond that. But as always, we're going to talk through the games. And one of the things we really try to do here, if you've listened to this for any amount of time, is not just give you picks, but give you the reasons why. And the reason for that is that it is important for you to be able to listen and sort of discern. Do you think the information is good? Is the angle good? Is there stuff that we're missing? And sometimes things just don't go your way for a while. That's a possibility too. So listen through all the different picks. There's some of them that multiple ones of us are on this week. So there'll be all winning together or all losing together. And hey, either way, hopefully you have a good time listening and have been picking up some good info. And I really do believe the next 5 weeks, still plenty of time to finish the season strong, end in the positive, and be there by the time we get to week 18. And this week would be an important part of moving that direction. So if you're watching the video, please do hit that like button. Like right now, just go hit it. It won't take long. Just one little click. Leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and if you are listening to the podcast, rate and review. All of that is tremendously appreciated. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the picks. Next up, I got the official leader in the clubhouse for the Best Bets show for the season, D Nice, who, we want to be transparent around here. He is the only one still in the positive on the year.
God, that's sad.
Gotta feel at least okay, right?
It did, but what doesn't feel okay, like it's great to be the leader. I wish that we were all plus money, which means that as a whole, we're probably down a bit. Look, full disclosure, we were humming along through, I'd say, like week 10 or so. And I'm pretty sure that I was up like 7 units or so on the show. I felt really good about all my bets, was making plenty of money. And then something happened in that, I'd say like late October, early November time range. It was like, I'm not seeing it as well. Took some bad beats. And here we are. We're down the home stretch. I'm still plus money. So it's good that if you're going on a losing streak, you're still plus money and that you can close the home stretch strong. But hey, man, it's a grind of the NFL season. And they call it one of the sharpest markets in the world for a reason. It's probably soccer 1, which is why it's hard to bet into those World Cup lines. And then in the NFL, it's probably 1A, right?
Yeah. No, that's probably true. And I will say it's been the last 3 or 4 weeks have been a struggle for most people on this show. But I see a lot of people on Twitter bitching about, close losses and all this stuff, especially the last few weeks. So it feels like the community overall has been having a little trouble. However, all of us are still in the range that if we can finish strong, it can still end up being a positive season. So that's what we're going to shoot to do.
Totally. And that's the end goal for sure. I feel like we'll start to see it pretty good in the playoffs in the past since like 2018. I'd say I've seen it pretty well. 2019 was super profitable, 2021 as well. So, I mean, it's just that middle of the road season that I think that some notes that I have to make to probably myself also to say, okay, sometimes you can't overreact to these teams that are like, 7-2. It's like, take a look at the numbers a little bit more. And there's other teams too. It's like, I can't continuously fade the Washington Commanders. Maybe there's more to it, even though I think I'm going to fade them this week, Tasty.
I think I am too.
That said, I think I'm going to fade the Commanders. Maybe that's a pick that I'm going to have.
Yeah. Well, speaking of those picks, let's get into them, man. What are you going to go with first this week?
Should we fade the Washington Commanders first for the plus money pick?
Do it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Let's do it. Plus money pick of the week. Let's come hot out of the gates. I usually don't do the huge plus lines. If I wanted a huge plus line, if you want to go out there, find like Titans money line, even though it's against my bird, sure. But Giants, Friday morning here, you can still get the Giants at plus 115. They're at home, Tasty. They're at home and they're an underdog. If this spread was about a month ago, it'd probably be your standard -3 for the Giants. And now you're going back in the other direction by 5.5. So look, I'm not a believer in either of these teams. I know that the Commanders have done quite a bit of good in the past 2 months. I think they've won 6 of 7. Wentz was not the answer, turnover prone. We all know that. Taylor Heineke protects the ball. He'll always have that turnover or two. I just don't think that this is a team that should be laying points on the road in the division. I'm not going to say that the Giants are an elite team. I'm not going to say that they're an above average team, but they're a team that's well coached and has wins. Rough go in the past couple weeks. I know that they got the spread cover home against the Cowboys last week, but technically they've had a rough go in the past couple weeks, but they're coming home. And I just, taking all the stats aside, it's like, I don't think Washington should be laying points here. For the people that like stats, you can take a look at Washington since week 7, and this is going against my bet. But yes, week 7, they're number 3 in EPA per play on defense, number 7 on the year, actually. So look, if Washington comes in and gets it done on the road here, great. And maybe I'll start to finally not fade the Commanders, but I'm going to do it one more time in the division at home. I'll take the Giants on the money line at plus 115.
Yeah, this one's probably not making my picks for this show, but you know that I'm in agreement. And actually, this is a bet that I've already made. I think you summed it up really well. It just, this line at home for the Giants is one that we absolutely would not have seen until this week. And you always have to take new information into account, but it just feels like a bit of an overreaction spot to me. And I like it at plus money as well. So
I'm with you. It feels like that they should not be an 8-5 team. If they win this game, they're 8-5, and they're really staring into a playoff spot. I mean, they're of course not going to host a playoff game because they're not going to catch the Cowboys or the Eagles. But I mean, this is a team that if you would have told me that they'd be flirting with 8-5 a couple months back, I'd say, really? So, but you got to give them credit, but I'm going to fade them once more.
I'm in the same boat, man. I'm in the same boat. I do feel like often, though, we see these teams start humming along and getting some hype, and then that is the time that you tend to want to bet against them, is when they're at the height of that hype, you know. So
totally agree. It's all about those trading ranges, as I talk about.
That's
I think
right.
that the Giants are trading a little bit low, even though I'm not a believer in them, not a believer in the Commanders, and they're trading very high. So
yep, that's right.
Sell high, sell high.
That's right. All right. So that's the plus money pick. What do you want to go to for your next pick?
Next pick. And I'll do 2 points of confidence on that.
Okay, great.
Even though last week I did 3 2-pointers, and I'm not going to say what my record was, but I think you can guess by the tone of my voice that all 3 of those lost. So two on that. God damn it. If I would have just had 1 win, I'd be like plus 1.5 units or plus 2 units on the year instead of what am I, plus 0.38. Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
I digress, but it's not negative. Knock on wood. So let's carry on. Next pick is going to be Jaguars. Team total over 25.5. To be honest, I was between this and fading the Colts. Colts going under 16.5. But since the Colts weren't at that key number of 17, they've landed around that number recently. I said, okay, Jaguars in a pretty good spot playing the Lions. The Lions, I think, have the worst defense in the NFL. And I give the Lions credit because they battled back. I mean, they started the year, what was it, like 1-7? They won 3 games in a row. If they would have pulled that game out on Thanksgiving, they'd be flirting with the playoff spot. But they lost that game because their defense can't hold. I don't trust Jared Goff overall. Will they get their points in this game? Perhaps. I mean, if you want to take the over in this game, I'm not going to blame you either. But I think that's a good spot here. That Jaguars, I like overall what I've seen from Trevor Lawrence in year 2. I look at the numbers and they're top 10 in EPA per play since week 7. I like to look at that. I mean, that's not going to, drive this bet. But if you take a look at that and say, okay, if you want to call this team and a slightly above average offense at home, clicking a little bit more, they're aggressive. They're playing with like nothing to lose because they know that they're likely not going to make the playoffs. Just go out there and have at it. And Dougie P is a good coach for that. He's aggressive. They went for it last week and they got that win. They took the Ravens out. So they're kind of confident. And I think that at 25.5, you're below that key number of 26, 27, 28. So I'll take it and roll with it. Jaguars over 25.5 team total.
Is it minus 110?
I did get minus 110 at DraftKings. I think that FanDuel has the same. Shopping around, perhaps you can get a better bet at PointsBet, actually. At PointsBet, it's pretty cool because you can actually create your own team total. And sometimes the juice is not worth it. But sometimes you can create a team total that's less than like what the other books offer. And it's a nicer number in terms of juice also. So
yeah, that is nice.
Pro tip.
That is a pro tip. What's the confidence level on that one?
Let's do 3 on that one because we need some confidence. We need some damn winners.
We do need some confidence. I like the confidence there. That Lions-Jags game is one that I feel like I have had a really hard time feeling like I have a handle on this week. So I'm glad that you do. And I do agree that Jacksonville probably rolls in with some confidence. And this is way down the line, so it's maybe not worth talking about now. But I've been thinking already about futures for next year, and teams like the Eagles that we got so, especially Yanni, and I think you got in before I did even, at such a low win total compared to where they're ending up. I think Jacksonville is a team moving the right direction. And so, I'm already thinking like, maybe they close this year a little bit stronger as well. Decent coaching. Lawrence has looked all right. Do you know if Etienne's playing this week? I know he's been injured, but they can be fine
know
without
for
him,
sure.
But but yeah, I like where the team is headed, even though this year probably won't go anywhere for them. So
yeah, and they kind of had that head fake pretty early on in the year, and people were buying in. I think they were 2-1. I was like, well, their team total, they could go over, and then they kind of came back to earth. But yeah, perhaps this is a team to buy in early. And PointsBet, don't do the team total on PointsBet because you can only get 24.5 at minus 125. That's worse.
Okay.
So if you want to take an under on them for some reason, if you want to fade me and fade this show, which I guess has been an okay strategy in the past month, then go to PointsBet because you can get a better line. You get 24.5 at minus 105 under, but I'm on the over.
Very good. All right. Love it. Last pick. What are we bringing it home with?
Bring it home. People in Philly won't like this. I might not like it. I got the Titans, and we recorded the podcast, the SirWagerRager podcast, Wednesday evening at 5.5. I thought that I was a little bit late to the party because I think 6, maybe even 6.5 was out there at some point. Look, if you got that, great. I don't like to chase lines, but at 5.5, it's good. This morning, as we're recording, it's 4.5. I'm still okay with Titans 4.5. I think this is like a 24-20 type game. I think that the Titans and the Eagles, if you match them up on a neutral with the Eagles' injuries, their special teams, which has been a mess, they allowed, I forget the guy's name on the Packers, but he averaged 35 per return. It didn't have a touchdown on Sunday night.
Wow,
so they just kept giving it up. They kept on allowing the Packers into the game because they have some cornerbacks that are out. There's Jordan Davis who's still out. He'll come back. But when you have CJ Gardner-Johnson, is that his name? I just say CJGJ, but he's out, and Avonte Maddox out. So you have these guys in the middle that's going to open it up, and that's why the Packers kept on striking. And you have a team in Tennessee that can run the play action really effectively. They'll try to box up the middle. I don't know what Derrick Henry will do. Hopefully not a lot. They signed Sue. They signed Joseph to clog up that middle. Let's see how effective they are with that. But if that's not being effective for them, the Titans are definitely going to cover this spread. But even if it is, they run that play action, you have those injuries in the secondary, not looking good. Jalen Hurts, we talked about it on the SirWagerRager podcast also, running the ball way too much. So I'm kind of worried about his health. Doesn't have Dallas Goedert either. He'll come back in the next 1 to 2 weeks, but that's
big.
An emergency valve type thing. I probably am wrong on the 1 to 2 weeks. It's week 15 and 8 weeks in the year. I kind of get messed up. He might not be back actually until that Christmas Eve game on the 24th. So they need to, go without him for 2 to 3 more weeks. I do think that the Eagles win this game, a close game. I won't be shocked if the Titans win. But this is a game that if the Eagles lose and the Cowboys win and the Cowboys are favored by double digits, everybody expects that to happen. All of a sudden, the Cowboys control their own destiny. And then on Christmas Eve, Cowboys play the Eagles. They're technically 2 games back. You can make 1 game up here. Christmas Eve, you win. So pressure's on all of a sudden here in Philly, even with that 10-1 record. They have the injuries. And Vrabel always has his guys ready to play. I think they're 6th in the league in first half points per game. They always have a good script. They come out good. The Eagles, to their credit, have been coming out pretty good overall in recent weeks. Still scoring, but the defense has been a little bit of a concern. But if they can shore up that defense and those special teams, sure, then they can cover the spread, especially at home. But from what I've seen right now, and I talk about trading ranges, right, and just taking a look at what this team is right now, I'm glad that it's not the playoffs. I'm glad that we have another 6 to 7 weeks until Philly can hopefully host a playoff game. So I'm going with Titans +5 to 5.5. It's at 4.5, which is probably what you'll have to post. I still like 4.5, man.
And I'll put you at 5 because at WinBet right now it's still at 5. So I just
Thank
take whatever
WinBet.
Yeah, whatever the best line is when we're actually recording. And this is Friday morning and it's still at 5. This is such an interesting game to me. All the stuff you said, I agree. We had an in-depth conversation about this game on your podcast. I retweeted that just now. So if you haven't listened to that yet, go look it up right now because we did a deep dive into a number of these games where you're going to get more in-depth information than you're going to get here. But just to say, I agree. And as I've thought about this game more, I actually think the first half is huge because Tennessee's come out really strong in the first half of most games. Their ATS record in the first half, I'd have to look it up, but it's they might have 1 ATS loss in the first
really
half
good.
all year. Yeah, it's really good. So I think if Tennessee,
it's like
if
1 or 2 losses.
It grimy, yep. If they can make it grimy, and then they get to keep running the ball, I think that's more problematic for Philly. Where if Philly can come out and get up 14 points, I think it takes Tennessee out of what they want to do, and that would bode well for the Eagles. So it'll be an interesting one to watch.
Totally agree. And Titans first half, I'm trying to look up the line right now, but if there's like a first half +3 and you want to play
it's
that,
3.5, man. That's one of the bets I'm considering. Is 3.5 in the first half. Yeah.
Don't hate it. You could go Titans +3.5 instead of full game also. So, okay.
Yep.
Don't like fading the Eagles, but I just try to be, completely honest about where my head's at. I don't think that the Titans are world beaters. I do think that they'll be a playoff team. They'll probably host a playoff game. Might they lose that first playoff game? Sure. But in this spot and what we're working with right now, if Tannehill's not going to turn the ball over, that's a tough task for Philly. So
for sure.
Let's see.
What's the confidence for that one?
Let's do 2 because I'm not going to do a 3 as I'm fading Philly.
I was going to say you better not do a 3 on that one. You might have to move.
I might have to move because the last time that I faded Philly on here, I think it was with the Dallas Cowboys, and they did hold a fight, but they didn't get it done. Note to self and to kids out there, do not bet on Cooper Rush. Don't put your hard-earned money on Cooper Rush. I was trusting the stats a little bit too much. It's like Cooper Rush on the road. Maybe don't bet on him, but hey, you know what?
You're giving out all kinds of pro tips today, man.
Pro tips of what not to do.
That's right. Hey, there's still pro tips. You learn the lessons the hard way, right? And then you can,
for sure,
people can follow along. So
100%.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, enjoy your weekend, and thanks for coming on. Again, I think most people know, but at SirWagerRager. If you do not follow D already, go follow him right now so that you can get the podcast he's got and all that stuff going on. And we will talk to you soon.
Very good. Appreciate it, Tasty. Talk soon.
Okay. See you, man. This is the man everybody wants to see. I'd have to go back and double check to make sure. But, Yanni, I'm actually thinking that you came off of a sweep last week on your picks on this show. I believe when we were talking earlier, you thought it was 2-1. Is that what it was?
I thought it was 2-1. I'd have to go back and look myself. I had an abundance of wagers last week, so I couldn't keep track with everything. But I think it was 2-1.
All right, we're gonna check right now because this is something we got to settle. I do know that you had the best week of anybody, regardless. But we're gonna find out here. Check the trusty tracking sheet. No, 3-0, man. Tampa Bay Cleveland over 42, Jets team total over 22.5, and Jets Philly San Francisco parlay.
The Tampa Cleveland over didn't get there.
Oh, I marked it wrong.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Here I am trying to give you credit for a sweep when you didn't have one.
Look at me trying to be honest and put it out there
So
instead
honest.
of taking the win, right?
I hate to do it, but I just changed it right now. So
there you go.
Now it's correct. We don't want any wrong statistics on this show.
There you go. Only fair. Only fair.
Hey, still not a bad week though. Good overall. So how was it for you on all the bets that you made?
It turned out pretty well, actually. There were, I won't complain about it. There were a couple of those, what we call bad beats. Mainly, I think, I had the Dolphins over 30.5. And
that
was
crazy.
Yeah, 30 first half points. But putting those to the side, it was nice. Managed to actually hit a couple teasers, kind of get back on track with those. And really, the thing I felt good about is the only pick that was what I would call off was that Tampa Bay and Cleveland over, which never really threatened. I mean, it ended up only being 1 point away, but in reality, it wasn't really close. Other than that, though, the reads were right. So it was a good week.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know that some people listen to this on a podcast, so I think many are watching the video. Yanni's ready for his Buffalo Bills, who take the field here in about 20 minutes. Got the chain, got the sweatshirt. We were talking beforehand about this feels like a big game for where these teams are going. Miami and the Bills are tied atop the division now. Real quick, I know that this is going to be in the past, but how are you feeling about the Bills for tonight? And let's through the rest of the season, winning the division, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I still feel pretty good. I don't want to understate the loss of Von Miller on that defense, because the reality of it is he was kind of a one-man pass rush for them. So are they going to be able to find enough to kind of overcome that? And the reason I say that is they have a defensive coordinator that refuses to blitz. He just doesn't.
They sure do.
No, and I mean, and that's fine if you're getting home with your front four, which they were early in the year. But without Miller, we'll have to see if they scheme any differently, which I don't think they will. So we're going to have to see if guys can step up. In tonight's game, I actually feel pretty good about. The one thing that concerns me is they basically have one offensive lineman that's been performing well this year, and that's Deion Dawkins, and he's out.
I saw that.
Quite frankly, his backup, Quesenberry, is not a great player. He was the reason Allen's elbow got destroyed in that game against the Jets, because he couldn't block anyone. So I'm a little concerned about that. Matthew Judon and that defense getting after him. But I feel like Allen has a good read on Belichick's defense, and the Patriots have struggled with mobile quarterbacks. So as long as Allen's willing to kind of be hero ball, which is what he likes to do, I think they'll be okay. But I don't know. I mean, tough road game, division game, short week, even though they played on Thanksgiving. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Yep. All right. Well, we're both cheering for the Bills. Like I told you, I cheer for your team unless there's a reason for me not to anyway. But in addition, I have a number of futures that are tied to the Bills. So I would love for them to keep moving toward locking up that division. So
you and me both.
All right. Well, hey, let's so that we get done in time to go catch the beginning of the game, let's jump in here. And what do you want to start off with this week as you're looking for picks for week 13?
Yeah, I'm going to start out with the one that almost seems too obvious to me. It almost seems, you hear that term trap game, and I don't believe that there's really a such thing, but it almost seems too obvious to me. And that's the Tennessee Titans. I like them. Obviously you can get +5 in some books still. I like that. I think that this is a field goal game either direction. I feel like this is going to be close. I think that Derrick Henry is going to have a big game. I know we mentioned on D's pod, Derrick Henry on the road has been an absolute monster this year. I think that, we saw A.J. Dillon kind of run through some of that Philadelphia front seven there, and I think that we're going to see that with Derrick Henry here. I don't know who's going to win this game. My gut tells me this is going to be another one where the Eagles kind of figure out a way to scrape by. I think they're too good. I think their offense is playing too well. So I think they'll figure out a way to win this game. But I think it's going to be really close. So if I can get 5 points with that Mike Vrabel team, sign me up. I'll take them.
Yeah, obviously. And for most people who listen to this probably are familiar with the SirWagerRager podcast by now, but we did a deeper dive into this game. I imagine that podcast will be out before this video is. And I'm with you. The Eagles just feel a little bit shaky right now, and some of the losses on defense, and you just get this feeling of the ebb and flow through the season sometimes. And it feels like the Eagles maybe are dipping a bit. I still believe that they're going to be a strong team heading into the playoffs, but it's a little bit of a blip on the radar right now. So
agreed.
I definitely can't disagree with that.
Yeah, and again, I think they win this game. I think they find a way to get it done at home here, but I'll take. I mean, 5 just seems like too much. I have this more of a
Yeah.
-3. So the fact that we're getting over a field goal with it, I'll take my chances.
Yep. Tennessee's one of those teams that I hear people talk about not getting respected by the books, which I'm like, well, the respect comes from who's betting what and where are they setting the line. So I don't know if it's respect, but they do seem to be undervalued compared to how they perform a lot of the time. And this does feel like another week where that's the case. So,
Yeah, totally agree.
all right. What's the confidence for that one?
I'm going to go with a 3 on it. And it seems too obvious, and sometimes those are the ones that maybe you're just missing something. So maybe I am missing something. Maybe this Eagles offense puts up 45 points. Who knows? But I'll give it a 3. I mean, I feel as good about this wager as any.
Awesome. Love it. All right. Number 2.
I had several ideas in mind, but I ended up settling on a 2-team teaser here and a 2-team 6-point teaser here because it's that old saying of I just can't see these teams losing, and it's really a fade of their opponents more than anything. But I'm going to take the Ravens -2.5 at home against the Broncos on the tees, and then I'm going to take the Seahawks -1 against the LA. And again, this is really more of a fade play than anything. We've seen this Denver team. The offense cannot get anything going. It's funny. Nathaniel Hackett made the comment that Russell Wilson's lost the locker room. First of all, I think that happened a while ago. And second of all, it's funny that the coach that probably lost the locker room 3 weeks in is saying that the quarterback lost the locker room. I don't see him going on the road at this point when they really have nothing to play for and beating this Baltimore team. I think Baltimore, for all of the losses that they've had that are a little bit perplexing and some of their, I'm going to call it inefficiencies. At the end of the day, these are 2 teams. I think one is heading towards the playoffs. One wants the offseason to get here. I just don't see Baltimore losing this game. We're getting it under a field goal at home. I'll go ahead and take it. In the other game there, it's 100% a Rams fade. I mean, you're looking at this Rams team that literally, this was a team built with superstars, with Matt Stafford, with Aaron Donald. I mean, that's how this team was founded. And in order to make that happen, they had to have some scrubs on their roster. And now without those superstars on there, you're basically trotting scrubs out there. And I don't see how this team really can put up points. I realize the Seahawks they've regressed a little bit. They haven't looked quite as good as they did early in the season, but I struggle to see how the Rams can win when you look at an offense that's Bryce Perkins behind a bad offensive line with backups, with whoever, Cam Akers and Van Jefferson and Ben Skoranek. I mean, I don't see how they're going to score. And then I think we're going to see what a difference maker, not that anyone needs to know this, but what a difference maker Aaron Donald is, because he commands a double and triple team on every play. And without having to do that, I just don't see this defense being able to do much either. And not to mention Jalen Ramsey has been, I think, a shell of what he can be. So you start looking at that team overall. I just don't see how the Rams win this game. I mean, you could literally make the argument that without Matt Stafford out there, that they're the 32nd team in the league without Matt Stafford. And even with Stafford, you can make the argument they're a 30th or 29th, team in the league, in my opinion, at this point.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's funny that you talk about them being that low, I mean, as a team, but especially offensively. And I think you're right. This offense is just horrific. I was listening to another podcast where they were just talking through the current state of the Rams, from the offensive line to the weapons and everything. And you're like, wow, I knew it was bad, but when you just hear it all listed out, it's just even worse than you really realized. I was actually wondering too, is Aaron Donald playing this week? So this may get updated, but right now it says he will not be active against the Seahawks on Sunday.
Right.
So in addition to okay.
Yeah. I think they've ruled him out for this week.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. And I from what it sounded like, and of course this team's going nowhere, I can't imagine they'd take any chances with him, with an injury. So I'm guessing that not only is he out this week, my guess is they'll hold him out even longer. I mean, why would you even put him out there at this point?
Yeah, agreed. There's absolutely no reason to do it yet. And, the other thing you said is you talked about how, Seattle has come back to earth a little bit. And I agree with that. I mean, you never want to lose a game to the Raiders this year, but I also would say that I don't feel like their losses are that bad. I mean, they lost to Tampa Bay, but that was that game in Munich, which we talked before that game about just the travel and everything and how it's really hard to know what to expect in a game like that. And so, yeah, they got beat by the Bucks in Munich. And then the Raiders are one of those teams that we know they have the offense to be able to put up big numbers. So in some ways, while you'd like the Seahawks to win that game, it's a little bit of a bad matchup for them because their defense isn't phenomenal. So I just think I think the Seahawks are still similar to what we thought they were, which is like slightly above average, probably, which is more than enough going against the Rams.
I agree at this point. I mean, I think this Rams team is like I said, probably without Stafford, one of the worst 2 or 3 teams in the league, maybe the worst. So I'm with you.
And we got to treat them that way. Agreed.
Yep.
Well, man, I love that one. I haven't done that yet, but I think I'll probably be tailing that one because those are 2 games that I'm with you. I mean, Denver and the Rams are both just so bad. So
yeah,
I better stop talking about it.
Well, no. And I mean, just to wrap it up with that, I think you get to a point in the season where you find those 3 or 4 teams that you can just fade. And I think honestly, you could legitimately, in my opinion, if you were going to play the side, I would take Baltimore, I would take Seattle and lay the heavy points. Now, again, it's a large margin. We know that Denver defense has been pretty good this year. I feel like in the Rams case, McVay will keep his team at least fighting. I don't think they'll just quit. But that being said, I mean, when you're just needing a win and you've got 2 teams fighting for the playoffs and playoff seeding against 2 teams that are just trying to get out of this season, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Agreed. What you said about finding those few teams that you can just bet against. The other thing I would throw in there, and I know this isn't your pick. Who knows? Maybe it'll be mine. We'll see. But Cleveland against the Texans too. I mean, the Texans are the other team I would put in that bucket of like, man, if you can tease them down to pretty much even, that's not a bad play either. I don't think.
Yeah. And so first of all, you're right. I think the Texans are an automatic fade the rest of the season. But I will say for this week, I'm not a psychologist. We don't know how players are or aren't going to show up, but they are playing Deshaun Watson at home.
They are.
There's I think, momentum for them to want to come out and fight in this game. Will it be enough? I don't know. Nick Chubb could run for 280 yards in this game, and I mean, it could get away from them. We don't know what we're going to get with Watson either. Is he going to be sharp and crisp? Right. Is it going to take him a couple games to kind of warm back up to getting into the NFL here? I don't know. But normally you're right. And I think the rest of the season, I will be looking at that Texans team and figuring out, is this a spot where we can fade them? Because I would imagine that after this week, I think they'll mail it in the rest of the season.
Yeah, makes sense to me. So what confidence level are you going for on that teaser?
I'm going to give it a 3 on that one too. I feel pretty good. Yeah. Again, I just don't see those 2 teams losing to those opponents. So getting them under a field goal, I'll give it a 3.
Yep. One last thing I'll say on that, just this popped to mind. The other thing that actually makes me like both of them is like that Seattle did lose to the Raiders and that Baltimore did have this close game. So I don't think either of them should be coming in here either just like, we got this. We're on a roll. They're not on a roll. So
you're right.
Hopefully point. That means they're ready,
Yeah, good point. And last thing, again, I'm droning on here, but at least in the Denver-Baltimore game, as much grief as I've given that Ravens coaching staff, they are a better at this point than Denver. So
that's fair.
You've also got the coaching edge as well, despite the fact I've been critical of Baltimore's coaching here.
Yeah, 100% agree. All right. Well, that leaves us with the plus money pick. You hit it last week. So
yeah, and I'm hoping to get it again. And this one, I'm a little more nervous about this one simply for the fact that some folks that I respect seem to be playing the number here on the opposite side of where I am. And I understand why. I think, from a betting analytical perspective, I get it. I think they're waiting and watching the number move, but I'm doing purely a matchup here. And I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals on the money line plus 115. They're at home. They're going to get Jamar Chase back. And I just think they are a matchup nightmare for that Chiefs defense. I think they're going to score as much as they want on that Kansas City defense. We talked about that a little bit on D's pod as well. The Chiefs have to blitz. That's how they play defense. And Burrow is an absolute blitz killer in the pocket. And I think that's going to continue. They have 2 choices, blitz and get diced up or drop in coverage and get diced up. Either way is not good. So I think the Bengals are going to score. as much respect and as much as I think Kansas City is the deserved front runner for the AFC Championship at this point, I just don't like them in this matchup. I think this is a game where they go in. I don't know how Kansas City will do offensively. They could do well. I mean, obviously with Mahomes, they're always a threat to put up 38 points, but they may not. But what I do think is the Bengals are going to score a lot here, and I think they have a very, very legitimate chance to win this game. I actually have them at about a 58 to 60% chance to win this game. So, for me, with those odds and getting the plus 115, it just makes sense for me to use that as a plus money pick this week.
Yep. I can't say much to disagree with that. We talked about this one on D's podcast as well, and it is, I think, a good matchup, and that is key when you're looking at these games down the stretch. And Jamar Chase coming back, that offense is getting back to full strength, and it's a potent offense when it's at full strength. So,
yep.
What's your confidence for that one?
I'm going to go probably just middle of the road there. I'll do it too, just because, again, plus money, it's not supposed to happen that way, but I think it will.
Exactly. All right. I love it, man. Well, hey, best of luck to your Bills tonight. Hopefully by the time this comes out, we'll be celebrating a Bills win.
I hope so, man. Appreciate you having me on. Let's get some winners this weekend.
Sounds good, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, man. Take care.
Up next, I get to talk to my good friend, Phil. Phil, how's it going today, my man?
Oh, it's going great. It's amazing blue kind of day.
It's every day is amazing blue kind of day lately, isn't it? I mean, last weekend you had to be pretty pumped watching what you watched against the Buckeyes.
I almost re-snapped my Achilles.
Thank goodness you didn't. With the progress you made, you don't want to set yourself back.
I sure don't. No, I don't. This is no joke. I make jokes of it, but it's no fun. But the Michigan game was. I watched it with a guy who played on the 76 team that beat them 22-0 in the Horseshoe, as well as a few others. And we had a great afternoon, of course. It's too bad it started at noon. But I guess they just wanted to make sure that the agony wasn't prolonged for the Buckeye fans. And, when Ryan Day, I'm going to tell you what happened here. 2 years ago, Ryan Day popped off. This is what happens when guys who may not have accomplished as much as you do. Coaching, I've been coaching for 35 or actually almost 40 years. And one of the encounters I always have are when people who never played anywhere or never had a real I guess anything outside of a tennis club they've never done, So anyway, you get that jealousy. It's part of the deal. And Ryan Day is just a jealous kid. He was born on third base and thought he hit a triple. This is what happens. I'm serious. This is what happens when you allow someone you fired to pick his predecessor. Urban Meyer was fired at Ohio State. Everyone knows this is not a secret. But when this Ryan Day popped off and said something about I'll roll 100 on you, that was the biggest mistake he ever made. Because this is what happens with wannabes. Wannabes do this all the time. They talk, blah, blah, blah. Jim Harbaugh is one of the greatest coaches who've ever coached football. He's won in the pros. He's won in the college. He won as a college quarterback. He won as a pro quarterback. And look at the way those kids respond to him. Look at the way he does his post games. He goes and looks for his players. Talk to him, he says. Talk to him, he says, and he walks away. That's the difference. Ryan Day's he's never been a head coach anywhere. He was a backup as a player. He's done some things in coaching, and God bless him. But you don't pop off to a guy who's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. You keep your mouth shut. Anytime somebody talks like that to me, one leg or two in their tennis, I just smile because they're garbage. But we have a big game this week. Purdue. Purdue is a good school.
Purdue is a good school. However, I don't think their football team is as good as Ohio State. So do you see Michigan rolling Purdue here, or do you think it can be at all competitive?
I think Purdue's better than Ohio State.
Wow.
They started off slow. Ohio State's not that good, man. I mean, seriously, you know what they are? They're built for show. That's the way it is with a guy, especially when you have a wannabe head coach. I guarantee you that those kids don't listen to him. Guarantee they don't. I mean, the bottom line is that how can a kid like CJ Stroud, who's a pretty good quarterback, listen to a guy who can't? He's not going to do that. I mean, he just went there because he's got great receivers. And the greatest stat of all time is Marvin Harrison Jr. God bless that young fella. He went to the wrong school, but he has not had one drop this season.
Yeah, he's excellent.
But seriously, all kidding aside, all joshing aside, I like to have some fun. What I said about Ryan Day, I meant, and I would say it to his face. But at the end of the day, because really, he's not my resume in coaching is better than his. But the bottom line is this: Purdue's a good football team. Michigan is a second half team. They've outscored, I think the number is 148-6 in the second half. They hardly ever give up
It's
points.
insane, man. That's an insane statistic.
Well, you know what it is? It's because you have a head coach who has real experience and he went and got guys who know how to make adjustments. And that's the secret to anything that you do in sports is how you adjust to adversity. And as we've seen with Ohio State, they don't. They've been very blessed with great talent. Don't get me wrong, but what do they really win? Come on, stop. But Michigan, I told you guys all this at the first week of the season. They're going to go undefeated and win a national championship. I stand by that. I put up a very serious wager on that just alone. So it's good. But Purdue's a good football team. They've really come along strong, dude. Really have. I have no action at all in this game. All I'm going to do is sit back 8 p.m. Saturday night. I might have to take a greenie or something or a cappuccino to stay awake that late. But I think Michigan come out ahead. I don't know if they'll cover the spread. I don't even know what it is. I never looked.
Yeah,
But
I
at
don't know
the
what it is either.
I don't really wager too much on Michigan except that preseason one because I kind of figured they were going to be good. And at the end of the day, I don't know if they're going to cover against Purdue, and I don't really care. What I care most about is those young people come out of there healthy. I hope that Michigan gives Cade McNamara his due. He had to leave the team because it's the only way he could get into the portal and get some attention that he deserves. He did a great job. I love that boy. So proud of him. He waited until the end of the season. He never popped off. He lost his starting job. He's the guy who beat Ohio State last year. God bless you, Cade. Good luck on your next journey. And you know me, I'm a guy who does not like the transfer portal, but he is one of them that deserve that. And God bless Michigan. And God bless you, Tasty, for letting me say that.
I appreciate it. Well, I'll look forward to talking to you when we get to the playoff about Michigan's games there. So,
Oh, yeah. But
all right.
let me ask you something.
Yeah, sure.
Does Ohio State get in with one win or one loss?
I don't think so, actually. I think there's going to be enough teams that are in line in front of them that stay in front of them. I like USC to beat Utah this weekend, for instance. And TCU, I don't know. We'll see. I think that'll be a close game with Kansas State. So we'll see what comes out of there. But if those two teams go out and win this weekend, it's going to be kind of a moot point. So
Alabama, man, they've lost 2 games by 4 combined points, kind of like my betting record this year.
Yeah, yeah, you've had a lot.
I'm a better coach than you too, Nick, but that's okay. You know that.
I thought you were going to tell me you're a better coach than me, which that
no,
we all know that.
I would never.
I haven't done much coaching, so
no, I like Nick. Nick's a nice man. He gave me a nice Alabama shirt years ago, and I think he's great. I'm just tongue in cheek there. I know what I've done. He knows what he's done. God bless us all. Now let's talk football.
Let's do it, man.
We got the JV shit on Sunday.
Here.
We got the JV stuff. Get all the Michigan stuff out of the way. Now let's get into the JV.
Now we can, that's right. The JV NFL. So
because that's the only one from now on. That's the only game I care about is the Michigan games. I'm serious. This NFL season's been interesting. I know I'm behind a little bit, but I'm having fun. And I'm going to take the Giants on the money line at plus 118 at Bet Rivers to beat Washington.
Yeah, talk to me about that. What do you like in that game?
I don't really like Washington, to be honest. I'm not a fan of the Giants, but you know something? They're playing at home. I don't think Washington – I know Chase Young may come back this week, another former Buckeye. But you know something? Saquon Barkley came off a stinker last week. He did not play very well. He killed my DFS roster, which was rolling. I had a big score too until he showed up. But that was my fault for putting him in. But I look for him to have a bounce back. I don't look for a lot of points in this game. But I needed a dog for the line, so I'm going with the Giants. I hope they don't let me down. Usually I bet against them, so.
Yeah, man, I am with you. I think Washington is getting way overvalued right now. I mean, they've been a nice story, and I definitely like Heineke in terms of the attitude that he brings to the game, but he's gotten lucky on some potential turnovers in some of these games. And Washington's defense, they're just fine, right? And I think the Giants are kind of just fine as well. But this is a game, I don't know if it'll make my picks for the show, but this is a bet I already made as well. I think playing New York at home in a game where I would say that these teams are either even or the Giants are a little bit better, and I'm getting plus money on the money line. I think it's solid. So I'm with you on that, man.
Yeah, the other thing too is that Washington has scored 23 points or less in 8 of their 9 games. I know a lot of that has to do with Carson Wentz, but still, that's this. They just don't have explosive. How do I put this? Terry McLaurin, another Ohio State player, he's explosive, but I think he's self-destructive like most Ohio State players. So, but the Giants, I got to take them. I got to take the Giants. If they let me down, they let me down.
Well, and man, I'll throw this in there too. If you look back at their record, really the only win that I would call very good is against Philadelphia. Philadelphia had a down game, but they beat Atlanta, Houston, Indianapolis, Green Bay, Chicago. I mean, these are some of the bottom feeders of the league right now in terms of how they've been playing. That's who Washington has built up this record against. And I think they get overhyped then because of the wins they've put together. And good on them for winning games that they can win, but it just hasn't been a strong schedule. So.
It sure hasn't been. And the Giants' schedule hasn't really been that strong either.
Fair.
But you know what? They're playing at home. It's a $1.18.
Yep.
So what are you going to do? So
Sounds good to me.
Look, I have my notes here today.
Nice.
Yeah, I was ready for you.
You were ready.
I was rocking and rolling at rehab. My rehab is like 4 hours, but it's only like 20 minutes, if you know what I mean. It's scattered out throughout the day, and that's where I get to have my fun with some guys.
Awesome. All right, where are we going next, Phil?
We're going to go to the bathroom in about 10 minutes.
Before that, with the picks.
Well, I'm planning now because it takes me a hell of a lot longer to get there. I got to make sure because I'm old too, right? So I got to make sure that I have the memory going. Remind myself because wet trousers are a bad thing.
Oh, anyway, man, we definitely want to avoid that.
Oh, as often as we can. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sure. I could tell you guys stories, but I prefer not to.
We don't need any wet trouser stories.
Oh, boy. Coaching tennis as long as I did? Oh, my God. Anyway, Miami Dolphins. See, I'm having fun because I'm hanging out with my friend.
Absolutely.
Dolphins +4, -107 points bet. Oh, you want me to explain why now, right?
Yeah. Talk about the game a little bit, man. Whatever you're thinking about this one.
Okay, so here's the thing. I don't care about Tua Tagovailoa and his noodle arm. He doesn't throw a hard ball. He's got. It's interesting with him, and God bless him because he's got some real serious injuries, and he's like one hit away from being crippled. And I respect him for going out there because he's really banged up. He's got steel rods in his hip like Andy Murray. But Andy Murray plays tennis, a real sport. Anyway, here's the story. Tua is good with those kids, Waddle and Tyreek Hill. He's real good with them. Now, the numbers I have to back this up is Miami has allowed 32 points over their last 2 games combined. So one of the things that I've noticed about Miami, begrudgingly, of course, is that their defense has gotten a little bit better. Now, maybe it's playing against the Houston Texans. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was the afterglow of the Michigan victory. But I seem to like what Miami did. And you know what, San Francisco? Come on, stop with all that. That team should score 50 points a game. But unfortunately, their quarterback is worse than the Miami quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo is a more handsome version of Alex Smith and probably less accurate. But at the end of the day, they've played good, Miami. They really have. Okay, against nobody. But then I don't really have a whole lot of respect for San Francisco, to be honest with you. I think they're a paper tiger. I think their defense has always been suspect. I think you can beat that defense. You could. I remember when they had the best defense in the league 2 years ago, if you remember. Yep. And I said, you know what? I remember talking on my show. I said, they are so overrated. It's not even funny. I mean, guys falling down on the rush, and they're getting credited for negative yards, stuff like that. They have a good team, but I don't think Kyle Shanahan's a very good coach. And I don't really think the other guy is Mike McDaniel. I think he's just filling a quota over there. He's a brighter shade of pale for that team. But at the end of the day, Miami's going to get him because San Francisco doesn't have an offense.
Let me ask you this on Miami then, because it doesn't sound like you're super high on them. But do you
Nope.
what do you think in terms of the AFC? Like, do they have a chance to challenge the Chiefs, the Bills, any of these teams at the top
There's only
once we
one
get to
team.
the playoffs?
There's only one team in the AFC, and that's Kansas City. The rest of them are all paper tigers.
All right, you heard it here first.
How does Kansas City? Everyone talked about Kansas City. I like the Kansas City Chiefs. I wish I could be a real fan of them. I would jump off the Jets bandwagon and the Lions the lifetime train in a second, but it would not be nice. And
No.
plus, apparently, I like misery in my fandom.
We got to stick with our teams even when they're bad. But then you get the times where they're good, like Michigan for you now. You get to enjoy it, right? So
Michigan, I'm going to enjoy for the rest of my life.
that's good. Okay,
That program is turned around, Jimmy Harbaugh. Anyway, but Miami, seriously.
All right.
What I'm saying about Kansas City, I'm sorry. Kansas City is this, and this is an interesting fact. Everyone talked about the Kansas City Chiefs and losing Tyreek Hill and how they weren't going to get anywhere and how they only went and got Juju Smith-Schuster and they didn't really try to get anything. And yet they still have the number one offense in the game. So what does that tell you? What it tells me is that Andy Reid, who is a great guy, he gave Jay Fiedler a great chance in Philly years ago. I'll never forget that. I'm so grateful to him for letting my boy have his shot at a dream. But at the end of the day, he knows how to get the most out of his players, him and Eric Bieniemy. They really do. I mean, look at what they've got. They've got Patrick Mahomes. They don't have a running back. Their offensive line is injured a little bit. They have Travis Kelce, and then they have whoever else traipses out off the practice squad, and Mahomes still kills them.
Yep. Mahomes is definitely the front runner MVP for a reason. He's been lights out.
But your question, I don't think Buffalo. I think they're a paper tiger. I think Miami's a paper tiger. I think that the only team that could probably, and this is a game I'll have for cover Sunday, would be the Bengals and the Chiefs. And I think that Cincinnati is probably the second best team in the AFC right now.
They're definitely getting that offense going here recently.
And if they get Jamar Chase back, he's going to be
with
really good. So anyway, Miami is going to cover the 4. They could come out of there with an upset, but the number's not high enough for me. The price is not right. I need plus 240 or better to take Miami on the line here.
Sounds good.
But I'll take the 4 points.
What are we doing for pick number 3?
Oh, wow. Is Dallas playing this week?
I think so.
They are?
Yeah, Dallas is playing this week.
And then they're playing the Indianapolis Colts team, right?
Yeah, you got that right.
The home of where Michigan will win its Big Ten championship on Saturday. Okay,
yep, that's it.
So let me help you here. I'm going to take the under in the Dallas game. Dallas under 43.5 minus 104 Pinnacle. Colts are hapless. They're embarrassing. If you lived in Indianapolis, you'd want to leave just because of that. But no, honestly, they don't have anything. The Colts have nothing. Zero, zilch. Michael Pittman's a coward. He goes across the middle and he doesn't catch the ball. They need Marvin Harrison Jr. Couldn't that be cool?
That would be pretty cool.
Wouldn't that be cool? Because I would become a closet Colts fan. Because deep down, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. should be the number 1 pick in the draft when he comes out. He's only a sophomore.
Right.
So, yeah, so I get to watch him get destroyed by Michigan one more year at least.
Yep. They could get him, and then when that Manning kid gets to be in the pros, they could get Manning too, and then they'd have Manning and Harrison again.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I like the way you think, Tasty.
Take two.
And they can sit in the stands and watch their kids play together.
Yeah, exactly.
Arch Manning.
Yeah,
that's not going to be good in Texas next year. You all keep an eye in the summer for Texas, because there's a kid down there, that Ewers kid, who's catching a lot of flack, but he's a freshman, for God's sakes. You know what I want? You know what I want when people give these young kids a hard time? I'm just playing with them, tongue in cheek. But at the end of the day, you know what I like them to do? Put in an example of them. For example, I had a guy give one of my students a hard time about his serve. So I asked a few years ago, I said, why don't you share an example of you serving, and I'll see that he gets it. Oh, that's not nice. He said, so then he says, I want to see an example of you serving. I said, no problem. I can do this all day.
I can do that. Yeah.
No problem. It's one of the 3 things I do well. But at the end of the day, this isn't going to be a good scoring game, this Dallas game. Dallas is kind of underwhelmed offensively. Big mistake. Big mistake, Dallas, letting Amari Cooper go. That was a big mistake. They should have never done that. They should have got rid of CeeDee Lamb. That's what you should have got rid of, because Amari Cooper can play. He's another one. He should have went to Ohio State. Another guy built for show. But Dallas, their defense is legit. And the Colts,
Yeah, it is.
their offense is not. But I like their defense. So 43.5 minus 104 a Pinnacle. Whew. I
All
feel like I
right.
gave birth.
I thi-
Not to offend any of you menstruating people, but
no offense taken, hopefully. So
I'm just being giddy because I put both my feet down on the floor for the first time in 7 months.
it's a big accomplishment.
Don't ever blow out
Absolutely.
your Achilles.
Man, I'm going to try to avoid it as best I can.
Oh,
So,
God. Yeah.
but
Every time I even look down, I'm afraid.
yeah,
I don't want I can't do another year of this, man. Wow. But anyway, this is fun today. Good stuff.
yeah, man. Hey, thanks for coming on. Keep up that recovery, and
Thank you.
best of luck to you this weekend with all the stuff. We'll look forward to seeing and retweeting all the stuff you're putting out for covers as well, so we can keep up with all you got going on.
Bengals, Chiefs. I've got Houston, Cleveland, and then on the Saturday game, I've got the Mid-American Conference Final.
All right. Well, follow at cashwithflash on Twitter if you're not already, or if you're following me, just watch for the retweets and they'll be coming along. So, all right, man. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Kalomina, everyone. That means have a good month.
All right. Time to wrap some things up with picks from me. First, though, we are going to run through Kevin's picks, as he was unable to jump on video this week, but still got me his picks, and he is pretty confident this week. All three are level 3 confidence for him. So the first pickup you've heard before on this program, and that's Tennessee Titans +5 minus 110. Probably don't need to say too much about that game, as it's been covered more than once. The second one is one that we have not heard of before, though you might hear about it again in just a minute. That is the LA Chargers +1 minus 107 at the Raiders. And I am going to not say too much about that now, because you are going to hear about it again in just a second. And then the last one, which we have also heard about, is the Cincinnati Bengals +118 on the money line against the Kansas City Chiefs. So those are all level 3 confidence picks for Kevin. All right, now let's get into my picks. 3 left to go. First one up for me is going to be Cleveland and Houston under 47.5 at minus 110, or minus 109, actually, is the best line I could find on this. Confidence level 3 for me on this. Here's the way I see this game. Number one, you have Deshaun Watson coming back. Yeah, sure, good quarterback, but we haven't seen him in forever. He hasn't played in live game action. I don't expect him to actually go out here and dominate. I think there is going to be that rust factor, even though I know that he's been practicing some now. I think live game situation, this probably won't be his best game. And so I think we're actually going to see Cleveland's offense maybe not be at its best, maybe even not as good as it has been with Jacoby Brissett. We'll see what the long-term holds, but for this week, that's what I'm thinking. Because of that, I also think they might feed the ball to Nick Chubb a lot, which means the clock keeps running, even though I think he's absolutely going to be able to do damage on the ground. So I like Cleveland to win this game. Cleveland -7 was one of the picks that I considered. Houston is as bad as advertised, and I just don't think they're going to do anything offensively. Is the other side of this. Is the Browns defense phenomenal? No. And especially in the secondary, they're not, but they're going against one of the worst offenses in the league. They might have a battle with the Rams right now. So I just don't see the Texans putting up more than about 14 points, even in this game. And so all the way up at 47.5, I would have expected this total at 44.5 or maybe even 42.5. So I'm getting way more points than I would have expected in this spot. Maybe there's something I'm missing, Taylor fade, but those are the reasons why I like the under in this game at -109 and really feel pretty good about that. My second pick is going to be the New Orleans Saints +4 on Monday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a little bit of an ugly one. The Saints obviously have been pretty horrific. They get a couple people back this week. I'm not saying that they're a good team, but I think that this whole division is an absolute disaster. I don't think the Buccaneers are very good. Obviously, they have the most talent in the division, and we keep waiting for that game where the Bucs are going to put it all together and start to be that team everyone thinks they can be, but it's just not happening. And I said on my future, I didn't do a video for futures this week. In the article that I wrote, I'm just done thinking that the Bucs are going to be good. I think the Bucs are mediocre, just like a lot of other teams. I think the Saints are on that lower side of mediocre, but I still put them in that big group where they can come out and have an okay game. They've had some variance with turnovers and stuff like that, especially fumbles from Kamara, which I just don't think is likely to continue. And because of that, I think that this game just plays out close. I actually don't know who wins. I considered taking New Orleans money line as my plus money pick, but I'm just going to stay away from that too, because certainly it's possible Tampa Bay wins this game. I guess I just think that it ends up being one of those, 3-ish point games. And so getting 4 points to me seems like a good line with two teams that just have not been very good, and I think are going to continue to not be very good. On top of that, got to be careful with the historical trends. Obviously, there have been different players on these teams, but even in the last couple of years where the rosters have been somewhat the same, except for Drew Brees leaving, which in his last years, it's not like he was unbelievable. And the coaching change. Again, I'm just trying to point out when I'm looking at any historical trends, we have to acknowledge the differences because it's not the same year to year. But New Orleans has had Tampa Bay's number, except for the first game this season. And so I just, again, think division game, they play each other close. New Orleans gets some stuff back. Maybe some variance moves their way instead of the other way. You give me 4 points. Seems like a good spot. So that's where I'm going for pick number 2. However, I'm only going to give that a confidence level 2. I don't feel as good about that as the first one. Last up is my plus money pick, and this is actually going to be a confidence level 3 play for me. I feel really good about this whole thing. Well, hasn't always gone well, even regardless of that, but that's where I'm at with the pick. So it's a 3-team 7-point teaser. I know that the teasers haven't been great, but I really like these legs. So first up, going back to the Cleveland Browns, and 7 points gets them all the way down to money line. So I just need them to win against a Houston Texans team that is an absolute disaster. I know there's the narrative out there that Deshaun Watson's coming back. Maybe they want to beat him down, whatever. I don't know, maybe a little bit. The problem is I don't think they have the talent to do it, even if they want to. So I do think it's possible that this game plays out closer than 7 points, although I think that line is about right in my mind. In fact, I thought about betting Cleveland -7, but with everything going on, I don't expect Deshaun Watson to have a huge game. I think 7 is about right. So I'm going to just tease it down because it's hard for me to imagine the Browns losing this game. I could be back next week talking about how they lost, but it would be unexpected. Let's say that. Next up, I'm taking the Seattle Seahawks -0.5 point. You can get -7 on the Seahawks at some books, but when you do a teaser, obviously it all has to be at one book. I used FanDuel because they tend to give the best teaser lines, and so on FanDuel, Seattle is -7.5 right now. So I got that down to -0.5. The Rams are just absolutely terrible. The only team in the league that might have a worse offense than the Texans. Aaron Donald is going to be out. They have Jalen Ramsey and not much else. Man, the Seahawks offense just has to be too much here for them, I would expect. I think that Seattle actually wins this game by 13 or more, so I wouldn't even mind an alternate spread pick on Seattle here. People are shitting on Seattle a little bit, saying they've come back to earth. I still think Seattle is who we thought they were, which is a slightly above average NFL team. I think they'll show out this week. And the last leg is those Los Angeles Chargers at +8, up from +1. Look, the Raiders are all right, and we've said all year they're volatile. They have a bad record, but they can show up here and there. But they're not good. Okay, they're all right, but they're not good. The Chargers need to win this game for their playoff chances. This is really important to them, which certainly doesn't mean that they get the win. We know that doesn't always correlate, but I just think the Chargers are a better team too. They have the better quarterback. They have the better offense. Their defense can give up some in the run game, which could be problematic against Josh Jacobs, but I think their defense is going to show up enough to not let the Raiders just absolutely go off. And I imagine I actually like the Chargers to win this game outright, but you give me, through that 3, through the 6, through the 7, all the way up to 8. I like that play on the Chargers. So all of that together, +120, confidence level 3. Those are the best bets for week 13 in the NFL. Let's go out and get some dubs. maybe even some sweeps this week. Hope the best for you and all of your betting, and I will talk to you next week. Have a good weekend, everybody.